Okay. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Liz.
Hi, I'm Lizette Myers.
Yeah, it is.
We know most of you, but not all of you. And
I think maybe she's running it.
welcome to History Night.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so
What?
okay, go ahead.
Okay. Hi. So, thanks everybody for coming, and I just wanted to thank a few people first before we start. I wanted to say thank you to Elliot Sokolov for really putting it together and editing a lot of videos and photos and getting them up on social media. And he started a YouTube channel. So if you need the link for that, you could contact Elliot or I, we could get it to you. And thanks to Billy Yalowitz for offering to speak tonight, and to Danny Dubno for the interviews that he did in 1998 for the 75th reunion, and Michael Brown, who had a lot of stuff in his archives that he gave us to put up. Also, I wanted to say thank you to Barbara Gladstone Spielberg, who I've been emailing back and forth, for offering to a couple of stories that she's going to tell us tonight from growing up here. Also, Elliot Gordon, I think, maybe talking, and Eric said he would talk, and also to Alana Schreier, for coming up with the idea. Is that right? But sorry. And also Drew for his tech support. No, not his. Also, I just wanted to say that the order that we're going to go in tonight is Elliot's going to start off, and then Billy, and then Barbara, and then Eric Stan, and Elliot Gordon. And then we'll open it up to anybody else who would like to, who has a story or a tidbit that they want to share. And if that's the case, if you would like to do that, please add your name into the chat. Excuse me?
Which is on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, which should be on the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer. If you're on a phone, I'm not sure, but maybe we'll see how it goes. Also, please try to keep yourself muted so that we don't get feedback from your sound. And I don't know if I said, but we're going to record this, hopefully. If we don't get, if this works out, last time we were getting our own comments in there, so we'll try not to do that. And if it is recorded properly, then we'll put it up on social media soon. Is there anything else that I forgot? Okay. I see Barry also has a story that he would like to tell, so we'll add you up there. Okay, so I would like to introduce Elliot Sokolov, who will start us off.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? It's great to be here and have this history night. I'm just going to say a few words and then show a couple of videos. And my own story is, well, my family's story is in 1927 and 1928. Both sets of my grandparents joined the new colony as founding members. My mother's parents, Adolf and Leah Rosetstein, bought an acre on the southeast corner of what is now Pond Street and Hillside Avenue. My father's parents, Meyer and Rose Sokolov, bought an acre across the path, which wasn't even really a road yet, on the northeast corner of Pond and Hillside. So my four grandparents became friendly, and my parents first met at ages 6 and 4 years old and grew up spending their summers in Goldensbridge throughout their lives. My grandfather on my mother's side was an immigrant who became a dentist in the Bronx, and along with 3 other dentists were among the colony pioneers in the first couple of years. And my grandfather on my father's side was an immigrant who worked as a union carpenter in Brooklyn. And he heard about the newly forming colony through friends in his union, one of whom also became a colony member. In 1976, when I was in my early 20s, my grandfather was still spending summers here at the age of 90 something. And I would come up to stay with him for a few days and go shopping, do his house stuff. And I had a very early cassette deck in those days, portable cassette deck. And one day I decided to just ask him questions about his life. And fortunately, those recordings survived. I was able to transfer them to CD years ago. So through the wonders of technology, my grandfather will continue the next part if I can do this right. I got it. Here we go. You see it now?
Yes.
We see it now.
1927. You know, Lipster was living here, Lipster. I worked with them together. He told me, Milton, he bought a big farm. And he wanted to make a colony, a cooperative farm for workers, poor people, not for rich people, but poor people, workers. And he looked for members. Milton was the president, the first president, because he invested here $5,000 the first. And every member invested only $25. We have about 20 members. We get a deposit. And every member paid the deposit $25, and then you got to pay $10 a month, every member. We pay out $500 for an acre. We together, we bought it together, a cooperative, a corporation. First members was Lipster, Katner, Goldenberg, or Milton. It was the first 3 members. They come with four dentists here. Belenske, Blake, Milton, and that. And then, a year later, come more members. Now we have more than 85 members. And that's again at the colony. Here was no roads, no nothing. If you want to go to Eureka, you gotta swim. The members, Milton and Katner and Rosen and Rubet Shemanik, they built the first year, 1927. And the rest built 1928, 1929, 1930, I built 1930. 3 years later. When I built the house in 1930. And this section was the Stiller had a small bungalow, a single room, one single room. And was the Tisha, but Shemanik, then Katner, in Goldenberg, in the other section, 3 houses. The other side, there was nothing. And that's again at the colony.
Okay. Okay, so I hope everybody was able to see and hear that okay. Am I still on? Yes. Okay, I have one more little video I want to play that this was actually recorded by Dan Dubno in 1998. He interviewed a whole bunch of Golden's Bridge members by age group. And this is the older age group, then in their 70s and up. And I edited together some highlights from hours of interviews he recorded. And there'll be a lot more of it on the YouTube channel. So let's see if I can make this happen again.
We got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We think our colony is unique and has been unique since its inception. Let's remember it was started in 1927, a time of pretty decent economy in the country, just before the major crash of '29. The people who started the colony were essentially Jewish, Russian or Slavic from Poland and other Slavic countries who had been trying to give their families a reasonable time in the summer and decided that they wanted to raise their children within a culture of values that they all agreed with. These were people who had come here before or right after World War I, probably before. They had come here with the traditional immigrant dream of freedom, education. I think one of the things they shared most fiercely was to have their children educated. And they wanted a situation in which their children could grow learning the values that they themselves were trying to live.
It's community. I think the word is community. And to this day, I think that the children here are the reason and the people who benefit from that feeling. I think children here feel protected, they feel precious, and I think they feel like everybody at the beach is their grandma. They can come into any house, like Dorothy says, and be cared for.
These were started by 4 professionals who were dentists, I believe. Am I right?
Right.
Okay. And they saw the opportunity to buy some property with 200 and some odd acres. And they thought it'd be great to provide it the opportunity. They'll make some money, but they have the opportunity for working people to come away from the city to this beautiful spot, which is still so beautiful. And that was it. Now, they were all socialists, basically. They had that aspect, and they wanted that to continue.
And if people couldn't pay their dues here, or the maintenance.
What were the dues?
And the early minutes will show that people were offered loans or extensions, or in some way or other were helped to maintain their place. And that's why the rental started. It was a way to
keep your property.
Yes, it's the only way for some people. There are a few families who lived here, like the Lipsters, Carpenter, really struggled. They had a cow one time, so they could have milk. They took in a goat. I remember they used to all sleep in one bed to keep warm.
It started as a community. I mean, you didn't own the land here. You bought into the place, but the land was not yours. So after a while, somebody looked around, they built their house, and they said, my God, it's my house, but it's not my land. So there's a big argument to give everybody a deed. And if you went to a meeting, I mean, it was going on, you know. We got to have a deed to have a deed.
With strife.
Yes, we got deeds, and so on.
As Paul said, there was an investment in socialist ideals. These young people, they had been young people when they left their country, had all wanted to leave the persecution in Tsarist Russia and in the Slavic countries around it. And they came with socialistic ideals and an investment in a cooperative, a communal concept. And that speaks to what Frida was talking about with the children. The land was owned as a co-op.
Was not divided.
Well, it was divided into acres. Yeah, but it didn't belong to any
It was
individual.
not subdivided until
Until the 30s?
yes.
35.
I have the
Tell us about that.
I have the old map. At some future time, I'll bring it, of the farm that was bought and the farmhouse, which is still in existence across 130.
Which have 4 stores on one side of Road 22. There's Sloat's Pharmacy,
Yeah.
where you could get an ice cream soda in the evening on
And
Saturday
green.
or something.
Yeah.
There was an A&P,
A butcher
a
shop.
butcher shop on one side, and there was a sort of a hotel bar, which I think was used for other reasons involving women.
And men. There were 2 of them, one at the end and one way up on the hill.
Okay.
I think Goldsbridge was the only
Goldsbridge was sometimes called Dodge City of Westchester County.
And I had envisioned a weekend lounging on the hammock on the porch and having just a beautiful time. And I come into a house where there's no electricity, no toilet, kerosene all over, and my books were useless. I had envisioned a weekend of reading, and then they took me to the pond, and of course Saturday night was the big banquet, and I danced in my red linen dress.
We came, it was dangerous. It was fire dangerous. Everybody brought their kerosene lamps because we had no electricity. We had no running water. We had no electricity. We had no indoor plumbing. We all had outhouses. And at some point, we should talk about our intrepid mothers and how they managed in all this.
Kerosene stoves.
Kerosene stoves, and everybody cooked and baked. It was great. Mothers brought food down to the barn. And Mr. Rosenberg scraped his fiddle, and
Washout recited boots.
And yes, we had all kinds of dramatic productions, home talent. We all learned to dance. Folk dancing started with the colony. The colony was born with folk dancing. That was the first kind of dancing I learned from Millie, from your sister Millie, who taught us.
My earliest memory is when I was 3 or 4 years old, holding my mother's hand and walking to meet Frida's mother and Frida. And at that time, the colony was just fields of wildflowers, and everything was low, and there were no roads. We sort of made our own path. And then the cooperative spirit, when it started, was with the building of the roads, because I remember the men of the community out digging and carrying rocks and carrying water to them while they were working to build the roads.
My best time was when Pitch Pachevsky taught me to swim in the pond.
Yeah. My memories go back to sitting on the porch and listening to music with a group of what we called the youth, or the junior youth at the time. And I was introduced to classical music. And we also had the campfires and the fun we had as youth in this community. It was just plain joyous fun.
Good memories of this place were 2. First, as a young teenager, and the friendships that we developed, and the good times and fun we had together. And then also as a parent, bringing my children here when they were babies and they're going to the day camp, and the sense of continuity and the good health and good fun that they had through us, and it goes on and on.
Thank you. That was just incredible. That's great.
Thanks. It was fun to put together. And I'm glad everybody got a chance to see it.
Bravo. Just from bravo, Elliot. Thank you.
Sure.
That was extraordinary, Elliot.
Thank you, Elliot.
I saw it on YouTube. Thank you very much for posting it on YouTube.
I just wanted to say there's also there's more on YouTube, so more of Danny Dubnow's interviews that Elliot put up there too. So when you get a chance, you can check them out. I think that's so. Anyway, the next one is Billy Yalowitz. Next person up. He's right here.
Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm spotlighted. Look at that. It's so good to see so many of you, and people have come from far away. Steve Mencher, are you out in California? Look at that. It's great to see you. I mean, I could pick out so many people to just say hello to and want to give a hug to. But I also want to thank the social committee and Elliot and Lizette and Ilana, the vision here for a chance to look at this history together. And I'm going to be reading an excerpt from a play that I wrote called East Towards Home that was produced off Broadway in 2014 at Theater for the New City. And there was a really nice contingent of people from Goldensbridge who were there to cheer the play on, and that meant a lot to us. And a few words before I read the excerpt. What I want to say here, Elliot, it's so moving to see your grandfather, and then to see the kind of the elders who grew up here as young children. And you know, some of us are blood related to those folks, but this is such a, to me, it's such a unique experience. And my writing of this play came out of a sense of collective memory, which is, I think, very unusual. And I think the founders would be very pleased that we actually do have collective memory in this village, in this place we call Goldensbridge Colony. And so in writing what I've written here, I drew from some of the interviews that you just saw, or interviews like them. I drew from the minutes from the early colony board meetings. And I also fabricated, what is it? It's historical fiction, or it's creative nonfiction. You know, it's kind of like my own lived experience as a child growing up here is kind of braided into that. And so I've taken some liberties, and some names will probably be incorrect, and I'll learn from you all, because that's the process of, well, that's the folk process of Goldensbridge memory. So I think that's what I'll say for now. And I will say, this excerpt was also performed at the 90th anniversary in the barn, and it was wonderful to perform this with Judy Showman and with Max. I seem to be nervous because I'm not remembering Max's name. Max's last name. It'll come to me. Anyway, so that was, so some of you have seen, Leighton, thank you, Ricky. Some of you have seen this excerpt and some of you have not. So, but in the spirit of collective memory, I'm going to share it again. I'll be reading, there are several characters in it, but I'm kind of braiding the characters all together here, so I'll read it in first person, more or less. If you can imagine that it's in the, it moves from someone who is a young person, maybe a 12-year-old in 1927, to a more contemporary voice of myself and my generation growing up here in the 1960s. So here it is, Goldensbridge excerpt from East Towards Home. My parents joined with a group of workers from the city. We had carpenters, electricians, dentists, furriers who had high ideals but low incomes, with the intention of organizing a workers' farm cooperative. After months of searching, it was finally agreed to purchase a parcel of land located in Goldensbridge in rural northern Westchester County. Just the name sounded beautiful. Did it really have a golden bridge? So Goldensbridge was founded in the 1920s by left-wing Jewish workers, a collective fresh air fund for the vanguard of the working class. Arriving on the train from the Bronx, schlepping shopping bags and satchels from the station, my parents, my sisters, and me, we walked along State Road 138 till we got to Pond Street. Ah, the country. My mother met several women who had worked with her mother in a dressmaking shop in Odessa. There was Stisha Walensky, Rosha Shotsky, Monya Glick. All of them were now in Goldens Bridge for the summer. How excited were my parents to have made contact with a bit of home. Goldens Bridge was dedicated to the active participation in the struggles of the workers for the betterment of their condition for their final emancipation from wage slavery. Well, for me in the 1960s, prowling the dirt roads barefoot with my pack of fellow red diaper babies as a 7-year-old, I felt fairly emancipated from wage slavery. We have a day camp in the barn, arts and crafts, and drama and baseball, sleep outs on the acre behind the Arnsteins. Me and Paul Scherer all day long swimming in the lake and catching frogs. Nothing is too good for the working class. Here, from the founding principles of Goldens Bridge Cooperative Colony. And here in the play, this was simultaneously translated into Yiddish. So for those of us who are not Yiddish impaired, as I am, you can provide that translation in the privacy of your own home. There obtains in present society a struggle between the owners of the means of production and distribution and the workers who must sell their labor power in order to subsist. In order to fight more effectively, the workers must organize and develop their own instruments of struggle. Trade unions, Arbeitervereinen, political parties, politische Parteien, and cooperatives, und Kooperativen, which must cooperate for the common victory for the workers over their masters. Motion. From now on, chairman will conduct meetings in English only. I object. Passed. A chairman calls on Belofsky. Stop speaking in Yiddish. We're in America now. Gay kaken af en yam. But first there were only acres, then tents with dirt floors, a wooden platform that was fancy already. And some people built their own houses. Mr. Sokolov and Mr. Buchman were master carpenters, and they would help other people on their bungalows. We built a 3-room bungalow with an outhouse and drew water from the spring. A great collection of Russian literature, lots of fiction, politics, humor. We were really strong on books. And if you listen real good at night, among the crickets, you could hear the voices of the founding generation of Goldens Bridge Colony. Mr. Rosen, as he sat on his porch playing the mandolin. Mrs. Zackheim singing as she hung out the laundry. Osmond Fortkin, Sevastopol, in the night for Sinferopol. Norden is a stantia voran. Barduf suchen Einblicken, sie stantia anantico, in Jan Koya, Jan, Jan, Jan. Hey Jan Koya, hey Jan Billy, hey Jan Koya, Jan, Jan, Jan. Hey Jan Koya, hey Jan Billy, hey Jan Koya, Jan, Jan, Jan. Comrades, workers, while the singing and the dancing has been going on, we've been adding up your contributions. At last week's cause affair here at the barn, we raised money for the Scottsboro Boys Defense Fund. And just now we raised $7.80 to be donated in the name of Goldens Bridge Colony to support the Lenin Memorial at Madison Square Garden. There's my bow. There's the excerpt. Thanks for listening. And I saw some of you singing along with Jan Koya, as were my parents over here. Back over to you, Lizette.
Okay. Thank you so much, Billy. That was so great. Thank you. We appreciate it. That was such a treat. Okay. So Barbara Gladstone Spielberg. If I can find you. Drew can find you. I just saw her.
She's up.
Oh, there she is. I see her. You can unmute. Okay. Hi,
Can
Barbara.
you hear me? Hi.
Hi, Barbara.
Thank you, Lizette, so much. You were so helpful.
Okay.
I'm still computer scared.
That's okay. You're doing great.
Well, I'm at a neighbor's.
Well, I have him. Otherwise, I'd be right where you are. So, so you sent us a couple of really nice stories. Are you going to read them?
Well,
or do you have...
I will read one.
Okay.
So I had a brief discussion with Elliot Gordon about the Danger Road. So I'm going to read this and then people can comment as they will. When I visited in the 1970s, I heard many untrue stories of how the Danger Road got its name. So here's the truth as I know it. Now, I was brought to the colony in 1940. I was toilet trained on the Hamburg's outhouse, and I lived there until 1957. So the acre space between the end of the lake and the beginning of the Gladstone Weinstock acre was left by the association in case the lake ever overflowed there. That land was low and very soggy in the spring rains, slippery in the icy winters. It was really no wider than a bike path, but people began walking and riding bikes across from Road 2 to Road 3. Parents would tell kids not to use it because it was dangerous. Laura Gordon, Chakas, and I used to walk across it regularly. In the 1950s, gravel was eventually dropped into the path to fill in the mud and enable it to be a safer, viable walking path. Of course, this led to cars driving using it despite the warnings against it. But if two cars started across at opposite sides, it really was dangerous. One had to back out and allow the other driver passage. Sometimes, I won't mention names, there were quite hilarious standoffs when neither wanted to give way. We kids loved to be audience to that. The sign went up to warn people, but never gave a clue as to what the danger was. And that's as I know
it. Barbara, remember there was a sign that said danger.
Yeah, it's still there as far as I know.
But now it's Danger Road.
Oh, when I was last there, it only said danger.
No, you were there. Yeah. No, I went back. Now it's the official name of it with a real street sign is Danger Road.
Yeah. And the other thing I wrote, which I really won't read, but I do want to give credit to Rosen, because my understanding is that Rosen would lend people money to buy their acre and then lend them money to build the house. And right after the war, my parents bought a surplus army barracks, and that's how my house began, as did Millie Gold and probably several others.
My parents also.
Yeah.
Prefabricated, the walls were bought at Macy's.
Well, mine, I think, was a real surplus army barracks that they bought from the army, but I don't know. All I know is that after the foundation was built, and of course, if you're going to build a foundation, you might as well make it an apartment that you can rent. Then the barracks was put on the base. And the first 3 years we lived there, we did not have indoor plumbing. So we had an outhouse until 1949. Anyway, but I want to thank everybody who's shown up. It's so wonderful to see people's faces. And that background of the barn, I just almost wept when I opened the screen. I mean, I'm 80 and I have memories of this place from when I was an infant. And I thank you all for keeping it. I'm assuming the roads are still dirt? Ah, Mazel Tov. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. That's really
Barbara, I'm sorry, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Barbara, you were just coming up on summers, or were you living in Goldensbridge all year round? Probably just summers.
I was coming up summers until we built the house in 45. And then in 47, we moved up permanently.
Wow.
We had no indoor plumbing. My mother had a wood burning stove. We took a bath once a week on Sunday night. She heated the water and poured it into a beetle. And I got the first bath, then my brother got the dirty water.
So where did you go to school?
Katona, well, first Goldensbridge Elementary, which was a 3-room schoolhouse. I believe it's the Community Arts Center now.
So it was over what's now 684, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where 684 was the town.
Right.
The town I grew up in was where 684 is. Right. And where the town is now used to be our ball field. Well, the town's ball field. They didn't want Jews to play.
Down there off 22. I have very vague memories. I must have been maybe 3. I remember going to a softball game there once.
Yeah. So I went to Goldensbridge Elementary School till 6th grade. And then we were bused to the Katona Central School, which was K through 12. And middle school and high school was on the 2nd floor.
Wow.
And I was in the first graduating class of John Jay.
Wow.
1957.
Wow.
Yeah. God, you look great, Ricky.
So do you, Barbara. If I knew you were here, I would have shaved.
Oh no, I love man hair.
I would have worn a skirt too, but you know.
Oh, that's fine too. Pat, it's so good to see you too.
Me too.
Anyway, thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Barbara. It was really fun because when Barbara sent me the stories and she said she was talking about the Rosens, and I wrote back to her and said, we bought the Rosen house. So it was kind of serendipitous. So it was really kind of fun to talk to you, and I'm glad you got a chance to share your story. And that story sounded fine to me about Danger Road. It sounds very accurate.
As much of a talker as I am, I get nervous in public spaces.
I'm not, I understand. No, you did great.
Thank
you. I'm glad it worked out.
Yes.
Okay, so next we have up Eric Stan.
Hi, it's great to see everyone. Thank you. I have a lot of documents from my mom, Frida. Her maiden name was Rottenberg, and her father was one of the people who was instrumental in forming this more perfect union or less perfect union. So I was going to share these documents with you if I can. I'm going to try and do that now.
Can you move on to someone else, and I'll figure this out, and then we'll come back.
Sure. Okay, so I think Elliot Gordon, did you want to? Let's see if I can find Elliot.
You can hear me now, yes?
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Hi.
Well, we come from the Goldenberg history, and thank you, the other Elliot, for the videos. But I will say the video of my mother was listed as Blanche Solsky. So in your editing, put Dorothy Gordon instead of Blanche. What I did is I put together a short PowerPoint, which I'll show, from basically photos I have in my, history in the basement. But let me do that now. Okay, as I was saying, there's the announcement of the colony. There's the colony with the danger road. Can you all see it now?
Yes.
All right, good. And the lake with the catfish, the sunfish, the bass, the snakes, and the frogs. This is my grandfather Goldenberg's house after it burned down once, the barn in the background. My aunt and uncle on the left, Herman and Blanche Salsky. My grandfather Sam Zimney, Phyllis Goldenberg, and Mildred Gold. On the left, my great aunt Rita, who was always a highlight in my life. Rebecca Goldenberg on the right, my William Goldenberg's wife, Bertha Birnbaum, and Zadie, and two women which we didn't identify. High Gold with Peter, and I put together something for my great aunt Rita's 100th birthday, I think. And the little lady on the couch is actually Allegra David, if you remember Allegra.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. This is the Goldenberg's house with two vintage sedans. This is again honoring Rita with my son Gregory, Mary Gold and Robert, Ben Gold, Linda and Russell, and Debbie Birnbaum and Carol Nordgren. My mother on the left, dancing, and that's an early picture of Peter, again taken by my grandfather, William Goldenberg, who taught me photography and who said that the best thing you must do first is have a good negative. So in one of my drawings, I have a good negative and showing Trump saying it's a perfect negative. He has his no masks on the left, and the actual print, the 8x10 right print is yes, masks, no social distancing, and so forth. So Trump had the perfect negative and still does. William Goldenberg's family, my father, my grandmother, Alfred, and Mildred. Rebecca. And on the right, Blanche Salsky, my mother, Rita Sachs, and Betty Bickwit, three of them with cigarettes. And I put a little red at the end of them to make them more believable. Here's Peter and Eric. Eric, you remember this? The July at the lake where we had these firecrackers and big firecrackers going off. On the left.
I remember setting a fire and my parents' lawn. Many years ago, there were very few trees around here. Yeah. And so what is the corner of Main Street and Hall Avenue was kind of a field. And me being a youngster, I loved, as you can see from the photograph, loved fire and playing with matches. Yeah. So I set the field on fire and watched it for a while before someone noticed it and called the fire department. So, yes, I remember that.
Again, Andrew and Rita Sachs, my parents, and Russell when he was small. In the center, we have four women who are all pregnant. Evelyn Goldberg, who was pregnant with Phyllis, then my mother with me, Shirley Zimney with Stephen, and Blanche with Richard. And Richard's out west now. And on the right, it's Robert Gold, Phyllis, and Peter Gold. And we haven't identified the young lady on the far left. If anyone can recognize her, let me know. Just another family shot. Again, Alfred Goldenberg, Laura and Phyllis, my mother, Evelyn, Minner and Russell, my father, Paul, and me in the background. This I like because Mr. Tishop was the master gardener. I don't know if you all remember his place, but he had just a terrific garden and rocks and everything with Laura and Rebecca Goldenberg, Rita again, and Barbara and Andrew Sachs. This I have is Admiral McCain trying to find his way up here without a cigar. I don't know if you know about Admiral McCain. This is John McCain's father, and he was a cigar smoker, so I have a special thing in my heart for him because I'm a cigar smoker. So he's on his way to Golden Bridge checking the map, pre-iPhone for maps and directions. Rita Sachs, Bertha Birnbaum, and Bertha's sister-in-law in the lake.
Elliot, what
Yes.
connection does Admiral McCain have with Golden Bridge community?
Absolutely nothing. But when I saw this picture, and it was in my pictures of Golden's Bridge, I said, it must have something to do with it. I couldn't think of it. So I kept it in there, and I like Admiral McCain. So I put it in there to generate questions about why is he there? And it worked. Zadie and Rebecca, again, Rita and Barbara and Laura with William and Rebecca Goldenberg.
Oh God, Barbara, you look the same. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
you know,
Holy crap.
it's amazing.
That's great.
Elliot, that's Gittel, not Zittel.
It's Gittel?
Gittel, G-I-T-T.
I'll thank you. And any other questions or edits, please send them to me so I can get this right.
Yeah, you have to add to the lake, you have to add the raft turtles.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the raft turtles?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Snappers. Yeah, the big turtles.
They were snapping turtles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and boy, they really, they were something.
And we call them the raft turtles because they hung out near the raft.
I've got just 3 shots of the groups with the names with Lana Friedman, Laura, Judy Wolf, Dina, BZ, Rhoda, and Lily. And again, 2 which we didn't identify. So if anyone knows the 2 girls on the
Elliot?
right, let me know.
Elliot, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
The girl on the far right, her name came to me. It's Susie Weinstock.
Workoff.
Workoff. I knew it was a W.
Burkhoff. Okay.
Workoff.
great.
Susie Workoff.
You'll probably, I'm writing it, but I probably wrote it wrong, so you'll send me a thing.
Okay.
All right, so we got that.
Also, next to Susie Workoff, it looks like Eleanor Cole.
No.
Could be one.
No?
No.
No?
No.
Looks like her to me.
All right. But if it comes to anybody, send it to me. And I can send this, what I'll do is I'll send this PowerPoint to Lizette and she can send it around and people can edit and suggest. Here's, of course, at the barn, again, with lots of the people identified, some not identified. Barbara is there, Laura is there, Patsy is there, Lana Friedman, David Raboy.
Oh my God.
So this is this
there.
is who we were back then. Bernie Lips. I spoke with Bernie the other day. He wasn't sure he could make it, and obviously he didn't make it tonight. He had another Zoom meeting he had to attend. And the final one of the kids with Peter Gold and all the names, Eric and Peter Moskowitz and who else? Bobby Tomaszewski, David Wisner, Laura, Beasy, Rhoda, and so forth. And with some, again, if you can identify them, send them. And this was on the 75th, and I say obviously pre-COVID-19. And the lake, the lovely lake, and I just say, was the promise fulfilled? And I suggest it certainly was. So I thank you very much for that, and
very nice, thank you.
I turn it back to Lizette.
Lizette, may I go now?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Please
I'll
go.
try again.
Go ahead. Oh, and thank you. Thank you very much, Elliot. That was great. Great photos.
Ask him to stop. He has to stop.
Oh, and you have to stop sharing your.
Oh, yeah. I'm a photographer. What can I say? Okay.
Okay, all right. Now you can share.
As I understand it, some of the history of why people came here was at the same, around a little bit earlier than 27 when it started. There was kind of a back to nature movement going on in the city. It was very congested in the Lower East Side and other Jewish neighborhoods, and there was a whole back to nature movement, and then all these camps kind of got started, some of which I went to as a camper, not knowing that they had been camps for adults to get away from the city 10, 20, 30 years earlier than that. So, these are some documents from my mom. This, as I said before, is a little red book. That it's not Mao's red book, it's our red book, Golden Bridge Cooperative Farms.
There, yay.
Okay, go
Yep.
backwards.
Rottenberg.
Okay. Go back. Oh, okay. Do you see
Well-
that? This is a map of the
Yes.
colony? Okay.
Mhm.
There's a-
Theo, where are you going? This is your heritage.
So this is the kind of incorporation, a special membership meeting of the members of the Golden Bridge Colony, assembled at Irving Place in 15th Street. Resolved that the president of Golden Bridge Colony, Meyer Zachheim, is authorized in the name of the corporation to sign any and all documents to buy the land that we're on. This is my grandfather, Rottenberg. So about somebody refusing to pay any rent until his place is repaired, and my grandfather saying, please see to it that he pays or he gets out. I believe a lien, L-E-A-N, can be put on his machinery. Advise me about it. And this is from Solomon Lieberman, who was the owner of the land that was bought from here. And it's authorizing Mr. Kuttner to act as a sole agent for the Golden Bridge Inc. to collect the rents. And this is again, Solomon Lieberman, cattle dealer, as well as wood for sale. And this is getting our insurance. This is a law office in Katona that drew up some of the documents for us. And this is to Mr. Milstein. And these are the shareholders. Yeah? What? Is somebody talking to me? Yeah.
I don't know what the feedback.
No, I
think it's a little feedback.
Okay. With everybody, different people's shares in the corporation. And you can see in this that we bought this for $52,000. It was $51,000 plus fees, which came to $52,142. And we paid a deposit of $1,967 for the farm, for this part of the farm. Something happened and they withdrew, somebody withdrew the mortgage from Golden's Bridge Inc. Suddenly they pulled out. Now I'm not sure why. And we had to change our name and take out a mortgage again in the name of Golden's Bridge Colony Inc. Before that, we were Golden's Bridge Inc. And this is the articles of incorporation that gave people these rights to transact the business and purchase, sell, and manufacture, whatever. Joseph Brodsky. And then this looks to me like, because of the Lieber thing, that people were started buying, although even this is 29 and 32 and 36, Lieber numbers usually are title numbers. So my understanding is this allowed people to actually register title to parts of the colony. If I understand this correctly, I may be wrong. And these are some of many of the people who bought title back then. My grandfather, incidentally, I remember him, he was an insurance salesman for Prudential. And we lived in a very large apartment building in the Bronx. And he would go around and in addition to collecting whatever was due on the insurance policies, he would collect that month's installment on these mortgages from various people. these are some of the photographs that were in this album as well. I'm sure you recognize a lot of these people. I'm going to give you a little while because there's a lot of people in these photographs. And there's the babes back then, and that's my sister right in front with the braids.
Isn't that your mother?
Yes,
Can you go
that
back?
was my mother.
Can you go back one?
That's
Yeah,
Frida,
that's
right in the middle.
Wow.
And Margot's right in the front, and that's
I see.
Vic Bishop over here on the left, sitting on the bench. That was 1949. It says on the photo. That's what was on the nursery acre. That was the nursery building, the old nursery building. That's David Raboy on his horse. As David looking very cool. And obviously there was a renting office in the barn at the time. There used to be a little store, grocery store also, I remember.
Yeah. To the right of the barn.
To the right of the barn, yeah.
I think Birnbaum ran it.
Yeah, my grandfather ran it.
Wasn't it called Chernoff's or something?
What was it called?
Chernoff or something?
Well, it was my grandfather's, David Birnbaum's, and my dad delivered the milk.
Picture.
That's what,
Right, that's right.
I think we called it Cherlin's store when I was growing up.
Cherlin's.
Yes.
And that's a view of the lake. I'm not sure what date that is. This is them building the beach with a tractor. And doing calisthenics at the beach. I don't know who that is. Beach. This is the boathouse or the bathrooms, also renting office.
Yeah.
This is the old pond on Pond Street. I think it's looking downstream to what is the dam that retained that pond. Perhaps, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here.
So I remember that access road past our property.
Yeah.
That access road that went up to what was then the Williams house. Right along there on the left, there was a retaining wall. So.
Yeah, there's a road that goes over it, right?
Yeah. So is that pointing toward the Lipster house? Is that the Lipster house in the background there?
I assume that's what it is, yeah.
Can you zoom in on that by any chance?
Can I?
I mean, yeah, you kind of can. That magnifying glass? Yeah, there you go. I can't tell if that's a rock or a house. So I'm sorry.
It looks like a rock, big rock. And I don't remember any big rocks over there. That's what's surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, thanks.
Back, you zoom out of here.
Oh, no, just give it up.
I just go where?
Oh, arrow.
Yeah.
Down.
Look at that. Look at that, Barbara. Babs.
Yeah, your grandfather loved to take pictures of me like that. That's a Williams shot all over.
I think this is the people standing on the concrete dam after that was built.
Yeah, yeah. That's my sister, Toby. Third
Yes,
from the left.
yes. Well, I'm pointing to her.
I had such a crush on her, Barry.
Really?
Oh, as a
I'll
kid,
tell
yeah.
her.
She was my counselor. I'm right there in the center, that little kid with the crew cut.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right.
I mean, it's
2,
Carol.
4, 6, 7 over from the left,
Yeah.
in the front row.
Ellen with her finger in her mouth, her thumb in her mouth.
Wow.
Oh my, yes.
Jeffrey Silman.
How can we get these pictures? Can you send them?
You can have the whole PDF, and then you can extract them if you want.
Great, okay.
My son can post these somehow. Theo can post these somehow.
Okay. That's Blanche, fourth from the left. Blanche Solsky, isn't it?
Yep.
Frida Stan.
And your mom is the last one on the right.
Yep.
Yep.
Frida.
Yeah. And I think is the fourth from the right on the bottom row, is that Bobby's side? Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Is it Peter or Robbie? Gold?
It could be
Yeah,
Peter.
it might be one of the gold kids. Is that you, Robbie?
I don't think it's me, but it
I
could
think
well.
it's
Could be.
Peter. I think
Looks
it
more
was
like Peter.
Looks like Peter.
Hey, Peter? Okay. That's Frida's house. Somebody could tell what year the car is. That's looking down Main Street.
Does anybody remember the White Rocks?
Of course.
The White Rocks, yeah.
What right rocks?
They were right at the edge of Hall Avenue and the lake. They were to keep drivers from driving directly into the lake. There were big
Yeah.
rocks that were painted white.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I don't. But we have big rocks there now. Again, to keep people exactly for that reason.
Yeah, we used to say, I'll meet you at the White Rocks.
Uh-huh. And the big rock to the left, every day when I went to camp, I used to pee on those rocks. So it was called Piss Rock. That's what we called it. Now it's covered with poison ivy. I wouldn't go near it.
That's the only thing that's stopping you, Eric?
Here's a bunch of houses. I'm not sure whose this one is. Solsky here. Rosen. Hasn't changed much, Drew, has it?
It's Motzwitz next to it.
Yes. It's the Hamburg House. And the Fast House. Another view of the lake. I'm not sure whose house this is. This is looking down Main Street, Mansfield on the left, and then Brown Dorfman, or Brown, and then on the right is Gottlieb, Metz now.
And just to the right of this is where the Gladstones, where Barbara lived, right?
Yes.
But you don't see her house. That's the
Not in this
driveway.
No. That's a view of the barn, probably in around 1950 or so. And it looks like, Drew, it looks like there are two windows on the end, on the left there, on either side of the door into the barn.
Yeah.
That's a great car, right?
Not for the snow.
It's about a 57.
And that's the Edelman house. That was a 57?
I think so. It's approximately 1957 Cadillac. Approximately.
Who had a Cadillac back then?
My dad's.
That was your dad's?
No. He had a black 59.
Edelman, which is now Migdal, which is now
Turiano.
Turiano.
Eric, go back to the barn for a second there.
That one?
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at that old window with the bars.
Yes.
Well, that was still there before Mark boarded it up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was there when I was a kid.
They made you believe the kids wanted to go to camp.
But you see the window above it where the fan is now.
Yep. Yeah.
Just an old casement window into the kitchen.
No, I like the windows on either side of the kitchen door too.
Yeah. I didn't realize that there were two windows there.
Yeah.
That fan is from like.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's old. It was Blashow or Pogan. It's now
Janie Cogan,
Jeff Rosedale's house.
Jeff Rosedale. This is Rosedale's house. Famous outhouse. I don't know who's.
There's a good outhouse.
It wasn't out of brick. There's that photograph again that we saw before. It was putting out the rafts and the barrels.
Yeah, before Shumsky's later walls there too.
Yes, before the low wall on the grassy area.
Yeah.
And the probably the one to the left. Now McDonough, there was Tomei before, Guinan. And we used to have two banquets. We used to have two banquets, one for the adults and one for the children's. There were so many more children back then. What happened?
That you in the middle there, Eric?
I think
like
so.
your
Yeah.
hair. That looks like your hair is so distinctive.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. I think that's Bella all the way on the left. The show must go on.
Oh, it must be in here. There's Moskowitz. There's Sherry.
Eric.
There's Bobby's side.
Bobby's side's right in front, and Eric and Robbie.
I gotta be this one.
David Yale, right there. My sister Margot on the left. David's second row, and David Moskowitz.
Yes.
Leah. Oh, there you are, Barry.
That could be me there. Joni.
David Raboy and Judy Wolf and Barbara Gladstone. And Moss, what was her first name? All the way in the back. She was a wonderful folk song singer. Remember her? She had
Mass.
Mass, yeah.
There's Joni Blake.
Jean Mass.
Jeannie Mass, yeah, Jean Mass.
Jean and Aaron.
the last row is from the left to right is Dickie Zackheim.
Which row?
Dickie Zackheim.
Which row, Barry?
The last row.
Okay.
Dickie Zackheim, Dotsie Rosen.
Dotsie Rosen.
Bella Melvin. Beezy's mother.
Bella Melvin. Okay.
And I don't know who the other woman is over to the right. And the last guy on the right is Ernie Lieberman.
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh.
Ernie Lieberman. Everybody loved him. And he was a folk singer.
Yeah.
Was he related to the Lieberman of Lieberman Farm?
No, it's fine. Don't worry.
It's the camp director.
And in front of Ernie is Barbara Gladstone.
Yeah.
And then what's his name? I'm the third one to the right.
Yes.
To the right of Barbara. That's me. And then to my right is Richie Cagle. And then I don't remember her name, but then to her right is Jeannie Side.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my heavens.
And let's see. And then the row in front of them, there's Laura, who is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, she's fourth from the left is Laura. And then I don't remember that girl's name, but the next.
The row before
Moskowitz. What's the first name? Leah Moskowitz.
Leah Moskowitz, yeah. That's what it should be for.
Is that easy?
What? No, it's not Beezy.
I'm listening.
And then Peter is to the left of Leah Moskowitz.
Right.
And then I don't remember his name, but then over to the right is Judy Wolf.
Right.
Next to her is David Raboy.
David Raboy?
Yeah.
No. That's Bernie Lipster.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, in front of her is David Raboy. To her, just in front of her to the right, to her right, that's David Raboy. But over to her left at the end, and in front of Barbara, that's Bernie Lipster.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And in front of Bernie is Judy's sister.
Oh, Dina
Wolf.
Dina Wolf. Yeah.
And Beezy is in front of Peter Gold. Over to the, she's.
Oh yeah.
She's if you go from Dina Wolf, then 1, 2, 3. There's David Raboy. 4, then 5, and Beezy is right in front of
Peter.
Eric, use the cursor when you're talking about people.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Beezy.
I didn't know if you could use you see the cursor.
You got it.
That's Beezy, and Peter is behind her.
Or maybe I should just say screw it, and I could be the cursor. Never mind. Bad pun.
Now let's see who else.
Where am I going from here, Barry?
Well, I mean, I think that's everybody I can rank. So if you go up, Peter is right behind her.
Yeah.
And then over to the left, to our left, that's Leah Moskowitz.
Leah Moskowitz.
Right.
I don't remember her. The next over, what was? It was with a B.
Is that Beezy?
No. Beezy is. We saw Beezy before. Where was Beezy?
Excuse me, guys.
I don't know, but further over to the left is Laura.
Laura, she was next, yeah. Laura was
If you
next.
go up, yeah, that's Laura.
That's Laura.
And below her is Phyllis Goldenberg, isn't it?
That's right. That's Phyllis Goldenberg.
Eric, can we post this up on Facebook maybe? Like, see if we put these up?
Sure.
That you guys can.
If you tell me how to do it, sure. I don't do Facebook. But sure.
Okay.
No problem.
And we can move on to the.
I'm next. This is Fred. That's me, just to the left, next to David.
Next to David. Here's David.
And that's me on the right of him.
Freddie Magdalene, right?
And there's David Yale.
David Yale.
Oh, yeah.
If you keep going over to the right.
Okay, guys, we have to move on, so let's move.
Okay, I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Here's a kind of another view of that with people. There's a
Oh,
lot
all
of
the names. Oh,
names.
okay.
I should have showed this first.
It was just a test before.
And there's Toby again, your mom.
And
There's
Irene
Bill,
Gottlieb
Keith
to her right.
This is Nikki. Isn't that Nikki, Carol? Okay. And we'll keep going here.
That's you in front of Toby, isn't it? Eric?
Yes. Yep. And that's it. That's all I got.
Wow. Those are
Pretty good.
fantastic. Please make them available to us.
Yeah, those
I
are,
will,
those
I
are
will
great.
definitely do that. I mean, not only try, but I will do that for sure.
Yeah, please. We'll put them on YouTube or something.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if you
Elliot,
can-
I'll coordinate with you. Sure.
Okay.
That'd be great. Okay, I think Barry wanted to tell a story next.
Oh, yeah. Talking about the barn, and this was, the exact date, it was the summer of 1954. And the reason I know that is because I had just, earlier in that year, I had my bar mitzvah. So I was 13. And this was a very special summer because somebody decided to, Pete Seeger had done the song, The Bullfrog song. The bullfrog jumped from bank to bank just because he had nothing to do. And we decided to invite Pete Seeger to come to the colony at the end of the summer. And what we would do is choreograph the song. The whole camp was involved in choreographing the Bullfrog song. So all summer long, every day practically, we had these exhaustive and exhausting rehearsals of doing the choreographing and then having all the kids in the camp at all different levels.
What year was this?
Nineteen.
I'd like to sing it.
What?
I'd like to sing the song.
Way down yonder in Yankee to Yank, a bullfrog
Jump from bank to bank. Nothing better for to do.
He stubbed his
Stubbed
toe.
his toe and he fell in the water. You could
Hear him yell around.
Water, for he's nothing better for to do.
We're way down south in the Yankee Yank. Yeah. Oh, so we did this all summer long, every day. The kids were getting exhausted and tired about it. And all the parents were involved and all the kids were involved every day in the barn. And I think Laura said that she was playing the saxophone to the music. And so, and the reason I know this is that for my bar mitzvah, I always wanted a movie camera. So I got a de jour wind-up 8mm movie camera. And I decided I'm going to film when we have the end of the summer, the performance. And we invited Pete Seeger and his wife Toshi to come to the barn, and we were outside and filming the dancing because we needed a light. So we were outside, right in front of the barn on that road where that Cadillac was. So we're all so the whole performance, and Pete Seeger came and with his banjo, and he played the song. He sang the song to us. And there was somebody who was doing a 16mm film with audio.
Is there a copy around?
What?
Is there a copy of that film?
Well, I'm getting to that. Okay, so somebody was filming with a 16mm and professional audio. It was a professional movie that was being made of Pete Seeger singing the Bullfrog song, playing his banjo with a microphone right near him. And I was standing next to Pete Seeger and filming it with my de jour my wind-up de jour camera. And he said to me, "Would you please stop that because it's making noise. I know it's not too much noise, but it's grinding and it's getting onto the microphone and it's interfering with the music. So please don't film it." So I had to stop filming with my 8mm bar mitzvah de jour camera. So we did the whole performance. The whole thing was filmed all the campers were filmed. All the parents were standing around, you know, and the kids were dancing in the center. It was a fantastic performance. And Pete was there, and he was singing live, and he was organizing the whole thing. And they said that at the reunion, at the winter reunion in New York City, the annual winter reunion, we're going to show the film because it had to be developed. So, so that was the big event. It was the climax of the summer. It was the end of the summer, and that's what we did. So we were all waiting expectantly to go to New York to the reunion. We went to the reunion and we said, okay, let's see the film. We don't have the film. What happened to the film? We don't want to really say. What happened to the film? Everybody wants to see the film. The whole camp, everybody was there. The film was destroyed. Why? Why did you destroy the film? We spent all summer working on it. So, well, it took pictures of everybody in the camp and all the parents, and that would be something that the FBI would love to have. And so this was the year of McCarthy and House Un-American Activities Committee. The film was destroyed. And that was the story. And it was the biggest disappointment after, that was the summer activity for the entire camp, for the entire colony. And that was the end of it. And it was just a terrible, terrible letdown for everybody. We never forgot that. I have another quick story.
Hold it. Do you remember the last scene of that movie? Do you remember the last scene in that movie?
What? I don't. You're muted.
I was me holding a live bullfrog. Was the last scene in that movie?
Oh, fantastic! It was such a pity. It was such a beautiful film. It was the kids. They're so great, and everybody was playing music and with Pete Seeger, and he was singing.
I remember playing my recorder. He had us in a little band. He made a little band. Anybody could play an instrument. He would have us playing. So I was playing a recorder.
It was fantastic. What an experience. So the other story happened a few years earlier, which I remember because I was too young to go. It was a Paul Robeson concert, live concert out in the open in Peekskill, which was maybe 15 miles away. And this was a big event, a summer event. Paul Robeson was coming to give a live concert. And
1949.
1949. Okay, I was right. So I was 8, and I was too young to go because Tommy Moskowitz had a pickup truck, and he said that he was going to take all the teenagers to the concert, but anybody who was younger than a teenager could not go. So I couldn't go, but my sister Toby, who was, if that was 1949, well, she was 14 or 15, and
it was supposed to be the ushers.
Oh, they were going to be the ushers?
Yeah.
Oh, so everybody. So he took about maybe 10 of the teenagers in his pickup truck in the back. They're all standing around in the back, and he drove to Peekskill, and everybody was kind of nervous because there were some rumors about what was going to happen at the concert, and he came back early, much earlier than expected, and everybody was really, really pale and stressed and scared to death. And what happened? Well, they got to the concert, and they were surrounded by the locals, who came with bats and various kinds of axes, and the police were there, standing with the locals, surrounded the concert area, and put up barriers to keep everybody in the concert out. It was an open air concert, but they put barriers. This is the description that I got from my sister Toby. And they were trapped, and it was a riot. It was going to be a police riot for the concert goers, and Tommy Moskowitz saved the day because he got all the kids back into his truck, and he crashed through the barrier with his truck, and he came back to the colony. And this was an unforgettable experience for all of them and for everybody. I mean, it was a trauma to the entire colony. We never forgot that.
Tommy Moskowitz told me the same story years later.
There's a
Do you have
great
more
book.
detail? Do you have more details about it?
There's a great book called
Oh,
Peekskill.
I know that he went there. He was like a Starker to try to guard against attacks.
That's right. Yes.
There's a book called Peekskill USA by Howard Fast, and it's available with pictures and the whole story.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very famous story.
I looked up the biography of Paul Robeson, and the Peekskill concert is in the biography, because we have Paul Robeson was he was a football player, all-star at Rutgers University. He was the first black football player, and he was an all-star. And I've been working at Rutgers, and our student center is named after him, the Paul Robeson Center. So there's a whole tradition of Paul Robeson at Rutgers in Newark and New Brunswick. So those are my stories.
Okay, thank you. Those are really important stories. Thank you for sharing them. Okay, I don't know if I have is Emil here? Emil? Emil? I'm not sure if he's here or not because he had his hand raised, but if not, let's go to Rick.
Oh, thanks. So actually I have two questions. I've always wondered, first one is, when they built the lake, was it filled by a spring, and how long did it take for the lake to fill before people could swim in it? That's my first question. Does anybody know the answer to that?
I listened to some of the posts on that were posted on YouTube during the day today, and somebody reported that it was, I think they said 37. I always thought it was 38, and that it took a couple of months to fill. There were springs, there are springs, and there was a lot more stronger flow into that area.
Right.
But they had selected that person, I forget who it was on the YouTube who reported that was a valley that seemed like a good place to. My mother always reported that was where they used to have foxes, fox hunting up from the Bondi estate, and they were Golden Bridge hounds. They were called. They're now up in North Salem. Same bunch of hounds, different assholes. But sorry. But my mother always reported that the fox would always run into that space because it was filled with brambles. It was overgrown with brambles, and of course the fox could get through that no problem, and the hounds could not. So the foxes outfoxed the hounds.
Wow.
And that's what that area was. But it's a couple of months, and I believe it was 37 or 38. And it was after someone had drowned in the pond
In the
behind her
pond.
house.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Oh, yes, that was the Yaknis daughter. That was when we were there. Yeah, she was a little girl. Eleanor Yaknis was the mother, and yeah, the little girl. She was only about 4, I think, when she 4.
That would have been
Hannah.
Hannah Yaknis. Yeah? Hannah?
No, I don't remember her first name. I don't think it was Hannah, but it was definitely Yaknis. It was a terrible tragedy that she wandered off into the lake near the dam,
Oh.
and she drowned.
Oh.
Opposite, it was
She was alone. She
That
wandered
kind of-
off alone. She was very young.
Yes, opposite the Blashow house.
That's right. That's right. Do you remember her first name? Oh.
No.
It was, the sister was Candy, and, oh gee, Yaknis. Eleanor Yaknis was the mother.
Okay.
Jessica. It was, her name was Jessica. Jessica Yaknis is the little girl who drowned.
Okay.
Barbara, a question about the White Rocks. Were the White Rocks down the hill from, if you're facing the entrance to the lake, down the hill from the lake, maybe
Yes.
200 feet,
Yes.
where there was that access to the lake? That
Yeah,
opening.
if
Is
you
that
were
where the
on-
White Rocks were?
If you were on Hall Avenue,
I don't remember the name.
looking at the lake, the Barn Road, if you were at the
Yeah.
end of the Barn Road at
Yeah.
the lake,
Yes.
that's where the White Rocks.
That's what I remember now. Yeah.
And Ricky,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
the girl who drowned in the lake, not in a pond.
Not in the pond? Oh, I thought
No, it was
somebody
in
had drowned in
the,
the
it was
pond.
in, it was in the lake. It was
Oh.
in the lake near the dam.
Okay, I thought somebody had drowned in the pond.
Someone did drown in the
That's what
pond
I
many
figured.
years before.
Oh,
Yeah.
was that? I don't know.
The girl who drowned in the lake, I remember when I was a kid, I think she was one of the twin. She was the sister of, there was a brother and a sister. And that rock that is about 30 feet before you get to the dam, from the beach to the dam.
Yeah.
There's a
It was
Fishing
19
rock. We used to fish off that
fish
rock.
off that
Yeah,
rock.
and
She
that's
fell down and hit her head on that rock. That's what I remember. And she was more like 7 or 8, the person.
Well, it could be, but her name was Jessie Yaknis. Terrible tragedy. Yeah.
My second question was, does anybody know anything about Tilly Achman? She was, when I was a little kid, she was very old when I was a little kid, and she was senile, I'm sure. And we used to be scared of her because we'd be playing in the ball field and she'd come down dragging this tarp full of leaves, and she would dump them. And we were always scared of her. And there was a period of time where she would come to our house and start pounding on our front door for my father. So for some reason, she fixated on my father. And she was convinced that her tenants were going to murder her. And it was just very sad. And then
I remember. Did she live in the house on the opposites across the road from the baseball field?
No, from the barn. Where
down the hill.
Jeremy and Denise.
The baseball
bought
field
that.
was down the hill. What?
She had a bunch of apple trees there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Oakman house was next to the Goldenberg house. And there were apple trees in the front yard. And Mr. Oakman used to yell at us and throw rocks at us when we got up in the trees.
Right, get the crab apples.
On the way to camp, we would stop there and we would steal some apples, right? And she would come out with this rifle and chase us with this rifle. So
That's right.
I have to jump in. This is Jeremy.
Yeah, it's
your house.
Jeremy Metz was restoring that house or changing that house. He came out and he showed me what that rifle was.
Right.
Tell us what that rifle was, Jeremy.
It was a kid's pop gun.
Wow.
Well, we were frightened.
Yeah, I was chased away by her as well.
I heard rumors. I think Steve Hodak once said that she shot rock salt at kids, but does anybody know what her story was? Because at one point she started talking to us when we were kids, and I think she was telling us about when she was a little girl in Poland, but it was just this very, strange thing. So I was just wondering if anybody knew anything about her history.
No, I just know she inherited the house when her brother Nate Ockman died. He was hit by a train. He used to go fishing with my grandfather in the reservoir, but he did not have a lot of friends. He was hard of hearing, and he was coming back from fishing, didn't hear the train, and was killed.
He must have been really hard of hearing. Oh my God.
And then she inherited the house, and she was quite a recluse. So I never really knew her. I bought it years later from Nate Ockman, who was a very interesting fellow.
I think my parents pronounce it Oakman.
Yeah.
Oh, we always called her Ockman.
Yeah, no, Oakman is what we called it.
Right.
Mr. Oakman.
Yeah.
And my mother told me a story that she and my father rented there for 2 weeks, long before I was born in the 37, 38. And Oakman threw my mother out. He didn't want her because she had bled in his outhouse.
God.
No, I'm serious. And so yeah, that was the end of their tenancy. They were very strange, the Oakmans.
First Hasid.
I made money as a newspaper delivery boy on my bike for several years. I was delivering the Daily Worker every day onto people's lawns.
Wow.
And I also got
the only summer job.
A good summer job. And I also had another summer job that I opened and closed the barn every Saturday night. That was a very grown up thing when I was, I think, 14 or 15. And I inherited the job from Peter Gold. And I got $10 a night on Saturday nights for opening and closing the barn.
That's better than babysitting.
Yeah.
Well, that too.
That was all I had. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those stories. Yeah. So I don't have anybody else, but if anybody else has a story, a short story that they want to say, just raise your hand, or you can. Oh, okay, Pat. First Pat, and then Fred. Go ahead, Pat.
I wrote about Golden's Bridge in a little memoir, and it started off with my mother hushing me up, telling me I was speaking too loud. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can everyone?
Yeah, you're speaking too loud. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Hi,
Anyway,
Patsy. Hi, Patsy.
always whispering in the house because we lived in the Bronx on the ground floor. She was always whispering, "Don't you were so loud. Don't you know they're listening?" And I said, "Who's listening? There's only you and I in the house. They're outside. They're outside the window." That's crazy. Who would want to listen at our window? The FBI. Oh, come on, Ma. You really think you're important enough? Shut up. That's enough. Go to your room. Practice the piano. Do your homework. Just shut up. But anyway, about Golden's Bridge. I honestly thought they were crazy. My parents were high-strung and fought all the time. But these delusions about the shh were the last straw for me. We lived in Golden's Bridge and everybody was a progressive. But what else were my parents doing? My father gardened. Do you remember my father's gardens? He had 2 huge vegetable gardens. And they used to bring the camp children to look at the gardens. And my mom used to be the secretary of the colony, taking minutes at meetings. And those minutes often ended in loud arguments, in a mixture of Yiddish and English. And sometimes people threw chairs at each other. And we kids used to listen outside and laugh. But was I to believe that my parents or other people in the colony were actually capable of accomplishing anything so important that the FBI would be listening outside our windows on 45 Elliott Place? From that moment on, I was convinced that my job was to remain sane in a very insane world. I also wrote about Goldensbridge.
One comment.
Yeah.
Patsy. Growing up in this large apartment building in the Bronx, whenever anyone knocked on the door, I would look through the peephole, and if I saw a fedora outside, because I couldn't really see.
Patsy, mute your thing.
Shall I continue?
No, Eric, say it again because there was feedback.
Patsy, just remind me of a story. Growing up in the Bronx in this very large apartment building, I was, whenever there was a knock on the door, I would look through the peephole, and if I saw a fedora, I was told not to open the door or say a word, because that, with a fedora, it meant it was the FBI, and I should not say a word.
Wow, that's right.
You know, it's true in Goldensbridge that there were people hiding from the FBI and the government. In the Smith Act, when they came out, there were 2 or 3 people actually hiding in Goldensbridge.
Ah.
And the FBI used to visit my house regularly, Patsy, so your mother may not have been so off.
Well, I was sure that she was crazy.
Well, she might have been.
Well, Gus,
the FBI drove a lot of people crazy.
Gus Hall lived there. He stayed in I think the Berg's house. He was a president. He was a candidate for president for the Communist Party.
And Henry Winston also was hiding in the colony. Yeah. And there was another guy whose daughter went to camp with us that year. Robert Green? I don't remember.
Green sounds, could be.
Also Ford, he lived here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right on the corner. Right across from your house, Barbara.
Yes, yeah. And I think it was 1951 when they ran away from being indicted, and they came up to the colony, and that's when the FBI started visiting our house regularly. Mm-hmm. Usually nights my parents were going to party meetings, by the way.
Can I go on a little bit?
Sure.
So someone had blown the whistle on my father and 8 of the men who worked in the post office. They were being accused of being communists. The other 8 men hired a lawyer to defend them. Dad didn't go along with them because my mom said, "What do you need a lawyer for? You are a lawyer." Anyway, my mom was always worried about money, and she thought the lawyer would be too expensive, so my dad went in alone. And they would take him into a dark room and shine lights in his eyes. "You live in Goldensbridge. Don't you know that everybody in Goldensbridge is a communist?" My father would say, "I don't know anything. I never talk to anyone. I just garden." Actually, he never did talk to anyone. He was incredibly introverted and shy. Year after year, they would take him into the room and question him with the lights in his eyes. "Don't you know your brother is a known communist?" "I never talk to my brother. We see each other at family dinners twice a year. We never talk about anything." Meanwhile, the other 8 men lost their case and were fired. But Dad held on until he could get his pension. I just want you to know I learned a lot from my parents, and I feel proud of my education. I learned to respect all people regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. I learned that life would be better for all of us if workers were paid a good salary, if unions were stronger, and if the rich paid higher taxes in order to support the programs that benefit us. So that was Golden's Bridge for me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Internationalism.
Okay.
Thanks, Pat.
Just
Go ahead, Fred.
first of all, it's amazing to see these people here, and just thank you for doing this. And so for Robbie Gold, your brother Peter used to have a smoking club.
I remember it well.
He would teach the little kids how to smoke. And they had Cherlin's store, and he would go in and get cigarettes somehow. And I don't know if, we were 6 years old, 8 years old, and he taught us how to smoke. And maybe because of him, I never smoked after that. So, and one other thing, just, it made me think, after you were speaking, Pat, I've been in the fire department for 40 plus years here. And one time, probably 30 years ago, at a Christmas party, the postmaster, who was postmaster of Golden's Bridge, was reminiscing about his days in Golden's Bridge. And he told me, not apologizing, but just reminiscing about old times, that one of the things in his job was to write down the return addresses for people who lived in the colony and send it to the FBI.
Oh.
So sometimes paranoid people are right. So, okay.
Lizette, can I add something, or is there somebody else's turn?
No, you can go ahead. Go ahead, Ned.
So I'm Netta, and Fred and I live in the old Tishop house. And I have to say that over the last couple of days, I have seen Tishop spelled about 12 different ways. It's Tiship, like a ship, like a boat. And we bought the house, my parents bought the house in 1965. And so this house has had only two owners. Elliot Tishop, and he and his sons built this house with the rocks from the hill behind us. And so he lived in this house for a long time, even after my parents bought it. When they bought it, it was this tiny little house, and it was a 3-family house. And I don't know if anybody remembers the Chasson family, but Jordan Chasson was one of the kids. I don't remember the other kids' names, but they lived here the first summer that my parents rented. They got here through Levine. And so they bought the house. And many years later, fast forward many years later, I'm a young divorced woman with a child, and I'm working my second summer after law school. I'm working in the, what? Oh, okay, thank you, Billy. I'm working in the courthouse in Carmel, and there's a very good looking guy there, and he's always there. His name is Vic, and he asked me out, and I said, okay, I'll go out with you, but I need to know your last name. And he said, oh, it's Tishop. And so I went out with him a couple of times. That definitely didn't work out, but I brought him here to see his grandfather's house again. And then fast forward a bunch more years, I'm married to Fred Margulies, and I'm talking to his mother and telling her this story. And she says, oh, I dated his father, Vic Tishop Sr. So we've definitely kept the Tishop line going.
Freddie Margulies.
That's good. All right. Okay, thanks. Is there anybody else? We're up to 2 hours, so I think if there's any, I didn't know if I missed anybody. I can't really see everybody. But Naomi? Wait, Naomi.
Sure, I'll say something.
Oh, wait, somebody else too. Who did somebody else? Okay, Naomi, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Naomi Stein. So I'm the daughter of Marilyn Posner and Cy Posner, who many of you know. So this is bringing you up into the 1960s. We've been talking about sort of a, much earlier time. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s in Golden's Bridge. And I cannot say how, I mean, everyone has really expressed so much of what I would say of the memories growing up there, but it's just shaped my entire life, from my choice as a career in social work to my passion and love and study of dance, learning the folk dancing back in the day in the barn, but then continuing that love through my life. I have a beautiful 18-year-old now who is very much a Goldensbridge child, although that's, I guess, me rubbing off on him because I've only taken him there a few times. But the influence goes on, even though he's not been raised there. It's funny. Hard to explain. So just learning how to swim with David Levy, you know, just the arts and crafts that I enjoyed in camp, and how I've continued arts and crafts my entire life. Things like learning to hike in 17 acres and build a fire, pop a tent. And I'm still camping to this day from that love that I felt back in camp in the 60s and 70s. The folk dancing and the banquets were tremendous. My friends were so funny. I feel those were my brothers and sisters. You know, every time I see their faces or their children on Facebook, you know, just that feeling of continuity coming down through the generation and watching my friends' kids grow up. It's just really shaped who I am. So
Can I just ask you?
So much. I wish I could be there. I'm in California, but after COVID, I'd like to visit. I miss it so much.
Can I just ask you, I remember your father so well, and I forget exactly what elected position he had. I just remember that he proposed having the New York State bird changed to the pigeon.
That's very much Cy's humor. Yeah, very much.
He
so.
was assemblyman,
No.
assemblyman from the Bronx.
Yeah, assemblyman from the Bronx. He was an assemblyman for 18 years. He continued on to be the vice chairman of the Workers' Compensation Board for New York State. And then his last job before his sudden heart attack was as I mean, this was tremendous for him, but he didn't really get to live it out. The AFL-CIO representative, lobbyist in Washington. That was his final job, and he was hired, but soon after had his heart attack. Marilyn, so yeah, just to go spin back a little bit, I don't know how my parents got to Goldensbridge, so I'm sure you guys do, but Cy and Marilyn brought me to Goldensbridge, and we rented from the Pogans, and Bess and Charlie were like my grandparents, I felt. We had the house on Hall Avenue. I don't remember the address, 39 maybe, since the time I was 2 years old. So that would be 1967. And it was, to me, this is luxury. We went up there almost every weekend of the winter because it had these electric panel heaters in there. So it had 2 stories. You guys might remember the screened-in porch that we had lots of barbecue dinners in, and Cy would, you know, be his charismatic self, holding host to dinner parties there with corn on the cob from that place I don't remember that sold the grapes and the corn and the
Donardo's and Somers.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
you should see the house now. You wouldn't recognize it.
Oh, I know. I've actually passed through, you know, maybe 10 years ago or so, but yeah, so I've been, so that was the start of living up there and going to camp with my friends, just the dearest memories and happiest times. everyone's house was open. Everyone was grandma, grandpa, making marshmallow taffy at the Rosen house next door, and visiting the neighbors one by one, and just wandered around barefoot, and the freedom, the safety, the feeling of community, tremendous. Such a special place. I've never seen or read or of anything that is like this, with its rich history and, you know, cultural roots. It's such an amazing place. So thank you for letting me speak. Well,
thank you.
I wonder if I could say something, just a little tiny thing. I'm Pat.
Hi, Pat.
I just wanted to say that when I was a teenager in Goldensbridge, I worked as a junior counselor in the nursery. And I was 16, and I met someone who's my friend today, Stevie Mencher. He was 4 years old, but that's where I met him. And eventually, we rented in Stevie's house after we sold our house. And Stevie was going to Music and Art High School then, where I had gone. And so from the time that I worked in the nursery until now, I have a friend for life. Isn't that right, Stevie? Stevie, you should talk too.
Absolutely. I love
Unmute, unmute. Unmute.
I love you, Patsy.
A very quick anecdote about a life impact. When I was 15, I was a lifeguard that summer, and Carrie Kornstein and her parents rented the Zachheim's house, and we went. She was 13 and a half, and I was 15, and I kept in contact with her. I was living in the Bronx, and she was living in Brooklyn, and we went steady for 5 years, and then we got married, and we stayed married until she died of breast cancer when she was 40 in 1982. We have
Wow.
2 sons. But that was a tremendous life. I mean, talk about a life impact of Goldensbridge. And also this, a few years earlier, I remember Ernie Lieberman was my counselor, and on the beach, he caught a frog, and he took out a board and pinned the frog he pithed the frog, which means he cut the spinal cord from the brain, and he pithed it and turned it upside down, pinned it down to the board, and did a dissection. And this was the most incredible thing I ever saw. A dissection of a beating heart and a live frog. And that got me into biology, which I
Wow.
it's still there.
That is great.
Didn't Mr. Tishop used to hypnotize frogs? I remember
Oh,
him
yeah.
into
Rub their belly. Turn them upside down and rub their belly. Yeah.
Okay. Ben, you trying to Ben Passamatic, I think, this time. Hold on. Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I've got Adam on the phone.
Hi.
And Judy. And I think Adam has a question or something.
You have a last name. Not a question, but first I have to say I am a prodigy of Shumsky. So I don't have a computer, I don't have internet, nothing. But I'm talking on a phone from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Can you hear me, all of you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So first about the frog. Now I understand why they had to destroy the film. You were torturing this frog, and it was the most subversive frog in history. That's why they had to destroy that film about the bullfrog jumping from creek to creek.
Thanks, Ben.
Exactly.
Did you want to tell a story or ask a question, Adam?
Yeah, I wanted to, back to the story about the snapping turtle. I was on the far raft one time, and I used to like to cannonball off. Or no, actually, I like to go into like a fetal tuck and roll off. And I was about to do that, and I saw this huge head sitting there, right under the water. And I would have gone right into the turtle if David Aarons hadn't pulled me back.
Yeah. That was the big raft, as opposed to the little raft. And the barrels.
Yeah, the one that you had to do the whale test in order to merit going out there.
Right. That was a big day. First doing the barrel test. That was the first step, and then the little raft test, and then the big raft test.
That's right.
I also wanted to say I remember Benji. Benji and I are twins, and Laura and Amy Bernstein was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bernstein. And so somebody went up to Nina and said, Nina, Adam or Benji threw sand at Laura or Amy. Anyway,
I think,
I love this. I love listening in, and I can see everything, even though I couldn't see the pictures. But it was a Michael and Michael. It was a real pleasure for me. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I think my mom would like to say something. Okay. Can you lean? Yeah, come closer.
I'm the mother of these two, and it's going to be very hard for me to talk without crying, but I'll try. I love Golden's Bridge. I always did. I always will. It was a beautiful life for me, and I loved every tiny bit of it. My kids from the age of 3.5 till forever lived there, summers, weekends, holidays, whenever. And we built a beautiful home there. We loved it, loved it, loved it. And then it was time to leave. And when we left, so did the house. And that house on Hillside Avenue, number 7, is no longer there. It is, in fact, there, but it is demolished. And it went and died on me before I got a chance to kiss it goodbye. But then Benji, Adam's twin brother, has promised to take me there as soon as this damn virus dies. And I'm gonna, if I have to walk, I'm gonna get there to see that house, to love it. An acre of beautiful grass and trees and flowers, 2 stories, because we had one built, and full of beautiful things. And it's just dissolved. However, I should also say that on the 16th of this month, July, I got a little bit older. I'm now 90 years old. And I can't believe it, but I am. And all I want, if you really want to know, I can't wait to get there just to kiss it goodbye. It was and will always be a major part of my life. And that includes Maxie and the barn. And I see Drew over here, who has helped me a great deal also. And Friday nights and Saturday nights and everything.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say. It's hard.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I used to play in your treehouse all the time.
That's true. And your mom, I remember so well, and everyone else.
Yeah.
And
Can I say a few words about Maxie? Max Aarons. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, one of my best memories. We arrived in Goldens Bridge in 1963 when Leslie was just an infant, and rented at Toma Sides. And now Leslie owns that house on Pond Street. Well, my best memories were hanging out with Maxie, because we were both kind of savers and collectors of things. We used to call them antiques, but there were a lot of junk as well. And he would take me early mornings on Saturdays to garage sales before they opened, about 6 a.m., to try to surprise the people who were first opening up their stuff in front of their garages. And in that way, he collected all his antiques by offering money for large lots. You know, this, and this, I'll give you this. And people were very happy to get rid of it because he would offer them a package deal all the time. And Max was probably one of the best characters in Goldens Bridge for years, of course. And he was there from the 1930s. And he knew everybody and everybody knew him. And he was quite a character. And that's my best memories I have are of him.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. And I really appreciate everybody's stories. This was really great. I mean, we could probably go on for hours, but it's getting to be that time. So we will put it on some kind of social media hopefully soon. And I want to thank you all again. So
Thank you for organizing.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank
Great
you
to
so
see
much.
you.
Yes.
Bobby and
Barbara,
Thank you,
Barbara, I
everybody.
sent you an email.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Barbara.
you. Stay safe. Yes.
Barbara, I sent you an email, okay? We'll be in touch.
Everyone.
Excellent.
Thank you as well.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Let's do this again.
Yes, definitely.
For sure.
Mahaya.
Watch out, Elliot. Be
Watch out,
careful.
Elliot.
Elliot. Oh my God.